The only reason leaders can give good answers is because they've asked good questions. And I can remember, let me give you one illustration of this. When I was, as you know, for 25 years, I was a pastor, and by the time I was 28, I had the 10th largest church in America. And so, Mark, I was invited to Orlando, Florida, to meet with about 50 other pastors of successful churches. And I was very honored to be there. And when I got there, I realized I was in my 20s, and all the rest of them would be 40 and above. I mean, so there was a pretty much of an age variance between me and the rest of them. And I can so remember listening and getting a lot of help, and it was really a good conference. But the last session, they ask us to, if you have questions, ask them. And I had two questions that I really had on my mind. But to be honest with you, I just didn't ask the question. I felt I was a little bit out of my league. They were all more experienced than me, and I got a little bit intimidated with it. Mm-hmm. They didn't intimidate me, I intimidated myself in the process. So I left that conference and didn't ask the questions, and I drove from Orlando to Lancaster, Ohio, which would have been maybe it's a long drive. But anyway, on the way home, I said to myself, I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm never going to be in a meeting where somebody knows something I don't know and just not ask the question. And then as a leader, I was very choleric and I was very directional in my early years. And I discovered was that there were a lot of times I was leading by assumption because I hadn't asked questions. You have to find people before you can lead them. And I skipped the finding part when I didn't ask questions, and I just did the declaring part and assumed, okay, you're all on the same train I am, so let's go. And so the biggest transition I've had in my leadership life, I think, if you had known me as a young leader, you would have seen me a very confident, strong, directional leader. And I think today you see me as, I think I'm still very confident, very strong, but I have a great, instead of having my agenda anxiety, which is a huge mistake leaders have, I have a connecting anxiety. I want to make sure I know where the people are so that I can lead them versus where I am. Leaders are too committed to making sure everybody knows their thoughts and their vision and their ideas and where they stand, and are, I think, not near enough committed to finding out where the people are. And then, obviously, you can take them and lead them. So I love leadership, but I think I love leadership a little bit more with including others and finding out their thoughts and taking their ideas and thoughts and integrate them with mine and hopefully helping them. So, in fact, I think one of the reasons we're so lost today is that we've lost our way in the area of values. And Mark, you know this because one of our passions is to help countries, and it'll soon be communities, experience transformation. And what we've discovered is that transformation begins on the inside, not the outside. Transformation begins with values. And we've discovered that when people learn good values and they live them, they just increase their value. They increase their value, they add value to themselves, they add value to others. And so I think that, yes, we've lost our way, and we need to return back to the basic values that can make a difference. I mean, when you think of the golden rule, just treat others as you would want to be treated. That withstands that connects with every religion, every culture, and that's just a good thing to do and to be to treat others as you would want to be treated. Well, that's a great value, and the moment that we begin to live out those values and embrace them, life does get better for everybody. So yes, I think definitely we've kind of lost our way, and we need to return to some good basic values. Values don't change. Life changes, circumstances change, difficulties come and go, but values are values. They're good. That's who we are. It's getting back to that Roy Disney quote, when you know what your values are, then it's easy to make decisions. And, I watched you with the value of putting people first make some very difficult financial decisions with the John Maxwell team. And yet you were true to your decision. of putting people first. And what I tell people all the time is if you just follow right values, don't worry about the fallout. And by the way, you could follow right values and have huge fallout. You could have huge loss. So I'm not just saying if you keep your values, everything's going to come your way. But here's what I know. If you keep your values, you can look at integrity right in the eyes of people and say, I put you first. Now, who's going to argue with that? I mean, I don't mean this unkindly, but when we think of, and we don't need to stay on this long, but I think that the reason that politicians have so much of a gap between themselves and the people is I think people basically look at them and feel they don't put them first. I think they put themselves first. And it's just never right to put yourself first. It is not about me. If I'm a leader, it's about you. And so the value of putting people first, I mean, if anybody ever needed a good tip in a restaurant, it's right now. They're losing their jobs. In fact, I've been kind of on a press to everywhere I go to try to be kind and generous to people because some of them, they have nothing. They're going to lose a lot. And why wouldn't I want to jump in and, help them? By the way, generosity has nothing to do with money. I mean, it has nothing to do with, I mean, I know a lot of very wealthy people that are very stingy and not generous at all. So it's not like if I had money, I would be generous. No, generosity. I know some beautifully generous people that don't have very much at all. But I can tell you what, they'll give, they'll share, and I think that's a beautiful thing. If I were interacting with any of those people that had that virus and that were in pretty dire straits, I would share my faith with them. There are at times like this, and I won't stay on this long because I don't want to offend a person that doesn't believe in God, because you're my friend. And by the way, if you don't believe in God, God loves you anyway. God doesn't wait for you to love Him for Him to love you. But I would share my faith because it's at times like this I really wish people had faith, because it's one thing for me to think positive, and I think that positive thinking is very good. But it's another thing for me to have a faith in God, who really does hear my prayers and does answer my prayers and does care unconditionally for me. And I think the best gift that I could ever give a person in deep trouble was, a lot of times I'll look at them, Mark, and I'll say, I wish you had my peace, or I wish you had my strength, or I wish you had my joy. And they'll say, well, what do you mean with that? Well, what I wish is I wish you had it because you need it right now. And they'll say, well, you must be amazing. I said, well, no, I'm not amazing at all. It's my faith in God that gives me that peace, that strength, and that joy. And many times I have the privilege of introducing them into this faith. But the main thing, I would want them to have anything that I have that I think would be an advantage to them.
Yeah.
And to me, the reason I share my faith is I'm not trying to convince people my way. I'm just trying to share with them something that I have that works for me. And it's kind of like, if you have anything that works for you, don't you want to share it or give it to people? I think that just makes common sense. So
absolutely.
That's what I do. So I did something that was just, this is fun, but there's some truth in it, okay? I shared with people, I said, if you've got somebody that's always being negative, when they come up and start dumping that junk on you, I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, I want you to take your left hand, this finger here, and put it in this ear. And I want you to take your right hand, take this finger, and put it in this ear. And then I said, I want you to close your eyes. And as they're dumping that garbage on you, I want you to do as loud as you can. I want you to go, ah! I said, I promise you, they'll stop immediately. And of course, the audience just went crazy laughing. And then I said, here's what's really good about that. What's really good about that is the next time they start to dump on you, all you got to do is go kind of slow toward your ears, and they'll get the message real quick. This guy doesn't want to hear all this negative junk. I mean, I was doing a statement today of strength. And I can't remember who it was that I quoted, but it was such a fabulous quote. And he said, basically, negative thinking is like putting fertilizer on weeds. Wow. I mean, if you were out in the garden, and you were fertilizing weeds, and somebody saw it, they'd say, "You're an idiot. What are you doing? Those weeds, there's no return there. You want to get the weeds out of your garden. You're fertilizing them." Well, Isn't it amazing we could see somebody fertilize weeds in a garden and say how disgusting and dumb that is, and we can let people have negative thinking and talk negatively, and nobody ever walks in their life and say, that's not good thinking, and challenge them. It's kind of like the garden in the ground is more important than the garden in our mind.
Wow.
That's kind of a short-sighted thought, I think. So when you ask how you handle diversity, you value diversity. The reason you love diversity on a team is because they come from different perspectives, different experiences, and really, when you're all going for the same mission and vision, you want as many perspectives as possible. It just really rounds you out in a beautiful way. So the diversity, I think, is kind of an asset, not a detriment. Now, when people are emotionally sensitive like that, what I do in those cases, I've done it hundreds of times, is I sit down individually with the person, Mark.
Yeah.
And I just talk to them about their emotional sensitivity. And I ask them to give me boundaries. I say, okay, it seems to me that you are, quote, like easily offended. Is that true? And yeah, well, so what can you give me boundaries on what seems to be offensive to you? And I try to listen to them. I'm listening to them not only because of clarity on boundaries, really what I'm listening to is I'm listening to see if this person really can handle the kind of meetings I have.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, people that take everything personal, I can't handle it after a while, because we're trying to accomplish something, and people that, it's all about me and how about how I feel and what I think, and there are a lot of times I lead people in the direction they should go that I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not about me. In fact, one of the things I like, Mark, about you with the different John Maxwell team enterprises is that you have upfront expectations with people when they come on the team. And one of the things you teach them, Mark, which I think is so solid, is it's not about you.
Yeah.
And just before they get offended, you say, but let me help you. It's not about me.
It's not about me either. Yeah.
It's about the big picture. It's about the vision. It's about the mission. So I think you have to individually talk to those people. But when you're asking them boundaries and those things, what you're really trying to do, you're trying to ascertain, really, there's a lot of people, they shouldn't be at the table. I don't mean this unkindly, but if they can't be a big boy, big girl, and handle some tough issues without taking everything personal in their life, after a while you just realize that you're not going to be healthy, and you're not going to make progress with that. You need people that will lift you up, not wear you out.
Yeah.
And so you just have to kind of look at your players and ask yourself, are they a plus or are they a minus in my life? And then lead them accordingly. Well, I think sometimes, it's hard too when you're in the middle of a crisis. I mean, when I think of like an ER room, when you're dealing with a lot of people that are, some of it will be life and death, I think you do get immersed in it. And I think that it is very easy to be caught up in the moment and the emergency of that moment. I think that you do. I think you do two things. One is during the emergency of the moment, your behavior should be lifting people up, okay? Not your words, your behavior. I think in between the crisis moments is where you begin to perhaps share or talk to them about how it could be, or find one of them that really would be doing well in that moment, and then compliment them on that process. But I think sometimes during difficulties, you don't have leadership teaching moments as far as what you say. You have leadership action moments, what you do, and let them see you have a spirit of encouragement, and let them visualize what you want them to possess. Because basically people do what people see, not what they hear. And when you ask about businesses, I think it's true with business. I think it's true with humans. In a business perspective, I think one of the challenging things is to put people first when you know you're going to get financially hit. Because you have a business to make some money, to have a good bottom line. Well, this isn't helping the bottom line. And so I think that the leader is wrestling constantly between what's best for the business and what's best for the people. Now, here's what I do believe. I believe that what's sometimes best for the people is not best for the business.
Right.
So, and I think that that's where the values come in. If I value my business and the money more than I do the people, then guess what kind of a decision I'm going to make? I'm going to put the business first. So here's what I say. Here's what I say. Put people first. You may take a financial hit for that, but when you walk down the street and you look at them, you can look at them in the eye. And you can have the integrity of knowing, okay, I lost a lot of money, but I treated you right.
Wow.
I think that. I mean, think about it. You have to live with yourself. And if you have to live with yourself, you really want to make sure that you always put the people first. I think that's the right thing to do. I think that's always in a business.
Yeah.
And then you have these huge issues that you have to deal with of letting people go. I mean, a lot of times you're letting really great people go because the business can't sustain it right now at this time, or you're putting them on some kind of leave or furlough. And let me tell you something, that should be very hurtful to the leader.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever I see a leader flippantly cut people or let them go, I said, wow, I don't think you love the people. You may love the business, but I'm not sure you love the people. And I tell leaders all the time, when you stop loving people, quit leading them. Because when you stop loving them, Mark, you know what you start doing? You start manipulating them. And that's always wrong. When I was a young leader, I wish I would have spent more time with people that were more experienced and successful. I did good, but I didn't do great.
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way, I could have done a lot better, Mark. And it's not, I'm not putting a premium on old age or even experience, because, there's some fantastic things that youth bring you as far as energy and risk and things. So it's not like experienced people have it over inexperienced people, but they have, for sure, if they're successful. Now, I'm talking about only successful people. I'm not talking about old people. I'm not talking about people who worked all their life. I'm talking people who've worked all their life and they're successful. Here's what I know. Here's what I know. The questions you have for someone older that's experienced and successful, they've experienced the question you're going to ask.
Oh.
Now, that's huge. There's one thing for me to know how to answer your question, and there's another thing for me to have experienced your question. And the difference is, if I've experienced your question, I can give you wisdom, especially if I was teachable and successful. If I answer your question without the experience, I can just give you a good answer. But what you're really needing during a crisis is wisdom, not just a good answer. In fact, I tell young people, you already have a good answer, you just don't have wisdom going with it. I think the trouble that we older people get into is when people ask for advice, we want to control. And I've never had you come and say, John, could you control my life for me? You've asked for advice. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And advice means I give you my best thoughts, my best shots, my best wisdom. But then you've got to go make that decision.
Yep.
Because how are you going to get the experience if you don't go make that decision on your own? So I think as an older person, a mentor or whatever, I have to always remember what my place is. My place is to give you everything I can give you, the very best that I can give you. But at the end of that, then bless you and say, now it's yours. You become a better leader by making the decision. You don't become a better leader by me controlling you. That you and I have high odds of losing millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Okay? You just need to hear that, okay? And yet, we're still thinking of the people first. We're still keeping our values. We're still thinking clearly. We still have a real sense of peace. And we don't know the outcome. And I think that's powerful. That's where you get moral authority.
Yeah.
On the back end, everybody can brag and lie. But in the middle, there's no bragging and lying here. This thing
Exactly
could
right.
this thing could put you under. This thing could put me. Who knows where it's all going to go. But can I tell you something? There's an expression that Alan Malawi taught me, who was that great leader at Ford Motor Company when he turned that around, and that when things would go that he didn't always like or just challenges he had to make. I loved his expression when he just always said, "It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yep.
It's okay." And all he was saying is, "I'll figure it out. There's always an answer. Don't have it now, but it's okay." And what I want you to see about this is that when you have that sense of sense that there is an answer, and you have that sense of confidence within yourself, what that means is it really works in the bad times. See,